Hey everyone, what a wild weather pattern we've been caught in lately. It's crazy how fast things can change, and this is just the beginning. As we look ahead, we'll be tracking the potential for even more snow, along with some severe weather and heavy rainfall events heading into the third week of March. So, as I mentioned, we got that surprising snowfall here in northern Illinois, and it's not just us. This system has been pushing up into southeastern Wisconsin, over toward Milwaukee, and into western and northern lower Michigan. Pretty heavy snow bands have been setting up there throughout Sunday, and that trend continues as we move north into Ontario and western Quebec this evening. Some areas could pick up 2 to 4 inches of accumulation, mainly on grassy surfaces. The pavement temps are still pretty warm, so road accumulations will mostly be slushy, but I wouldn't be shocked if some of that 4-inch total in northern lower Michigan ends up sticking to the roads and spots. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Now, while we've got snow on the cold side of this system, the warm side is setting up for more severe weather. Today, there's a level 3 out of 5, an enhanced risk for severe storms in western Pennsylvania, far western New York, northern West Virginia, and western Maryland. A little farther south, a level 2 out of 5, the slight risk extends down through Virginia, the Carolinas, southeastern Georgia, and north central Florida. And wrapping around that, we have marginal risk in the dark green, which covers a broader area. The biggest threat today, strong winds. We're looking at 60 to 70 mf/gauge gusts, especially in the yellow and red highlighted zones. That translates to a 15 to 30% chance of damaging winds within a 25-mile radius of any location in those areas. On top of that, we do have a tornado risk 2% in the green zone, 5% in the brown. It stretches from North Florida all the way up to Lake Erie, so this is definitely something we're keeping an eye on. Hail is also in play, mainly for the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, where instability is the strongest. We could see some quarter-size hail, maybe even slightly larger in some of those storms. Looking ahead to this afternoon and evening, storms will be firing up from the mid-Atlantic down through the southeast. Cities like Baltimore, Philly, D.C., Roanoke, Wilmington, Raleigh, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, and even Tampa Bay, these areas could all see stronger thunderstorms moving in. By tonight, those storms will march off the coast, but we're still looking at some very heavy rainfall from Trenton up through New York City, Long Island, Hartford, Boston, and into Portland, Maine. It's going to be a long night of steady rain, and that continues into Monday. Rainfall totals could stack up quickly, with some places picking up 1 to 4 inches. That's enough to trigger at least some minor flash flooding, so keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about this temperature roller coaster. Today, Sunday, March 16th, the cold front is bringing snow showers to the western Great Lakes and Midwest, keeping temperatures locked in the 30s and 40s. But as we head into the new work week, everything flips again. By Monday, March 17th, we'll start warming up as southwest winds kick in. The coldest air will be out west and across the southeast, and especially in Florida, but for much of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and even parts of the Northeast, temperatures will be climbing. Check this out. By Monday, areas that saw snow today, completely different story. We'll be at 60 degrees here in northern Illinois, and that 70-degree line will stretch all the way up into South Dakota and southern Minnesota. And if that's not impressive enough, by Tuesday, mid-70s return to Iowa and northern Illinois. 60s reach into Wisconsin and lower Michigan. And we're talking mid-80s across Kansas and Oklahoma, with some 90s popping up in western and southern Texas. Then another strong cold front rolls in midweek, dropping temps again, only for them to rebound by Thursday and Friday. It's a wild ride, and that brings us to our next storm system. By midweek Wednesday, we're tracking another big one moving across the central U.S. You can already see the snowfall stacking up in Oregon, the higher elevations of Idaho, western Montana, and Wyoming. Heavy rain is setting up along the Pacific Northwest from Portland and Eugene down into northwestern California. And this system is shifting south, meaning places like the northern Sierra and parts of central California could see some pretty decent precipitation. Up in the mountains, of course, that means more snow, while the lower elevations will be getting rain. Speaking of snow, the storm will bring some serious totals to the western mountains. Ski resorts are in for a solid replenishment, with over 2 feet of snow possible from Wyoming into Montana, Idaho, and the Pacific Northwest. So even the Sierra Nevada range is looking at a few feet of fresh powder as we head into the new work week. Now, this system isn't staying put. It's moving east. By Monday, the central U.S. starts off dry, but by Tuesday, we've got energy pushing into the Rockies, bringing snow from Wyoming down through Utah and western Colorado. A little further east, Into South Dakota, southern Minnesota, and Wisconsin, we could start off with some freezing drizzle, something to watch for potential road impacts early in the day. That should switch over to rain as temps warm up in the afternoon. Then, by Wednesday morning, this system really starts to take shape. Heavy snow on the backside, tight isobars, meaning it'll be a windy one. Western Kansas, eastern Colorado, New Mexico, and northwest Iowa could see blowing snow conditions. On the warm side, rainfall and thunderstorms will fire up across southeast Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. By Wednesday evening, a cold front will sweep through, bringing a risk of strong thunderstorms into the western and southwestern Great Lakes. As we move into Thursday morning, we're looking at another round of rain sweeping across the East Coast. This system will bring some moisture, and on the backside, we could see a transition to snow. Now, it's not expected to be a major snow event, but minor accumulations are definitely possible, especially in areas further inland. Just something to keep an eye on if you're in those regions. Now, shifting focus to severe weather, this is where things start to get a little more interesting. Looking at Tuesday afternoon, we don't have a whole lot of energy in place just yet. Dew points, which are a good measure of how much moisture is in the atmosphere, only sitting in the 40s and low 50s across much of the region. That's not really enough to support widespread severe weather. So Tuesday should be relatively quiet on that front. But by Wednesday, things start to change. A strong dry line is expected to set up, stretching all the way from the plains into Missouri. Dry lines like this are known for sparking thunderstorms, and this one could be active as it pushes east. As the system progresses further into the Ohio Valley, the dry line itself begins to lose some of its structure, but that doesn't mean the storm threat disappears. There's going to be just enough moisture creeping up from the Gulf, extending all the way to Lake Michigan, and that could provide the fuel needed for some stronger storms. Eastern Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan in particular may need to be on alert Wednesday afternoon and evening. Now, the instability isn't going to be through the roof. This isn't shaping up to be a massive outbreak, but there's still enough energy in the atmosphere for isolated severe storms. The main concerns will be gusty winds and some hail, so it's something to keep an eye on if you're in those areas. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. As far as rainfall amounts go, this isn't a system that's going to bring excessive rain because it's moving pretty quickly. We're only expecting about a quarter to half an inch of total precipitation across most areas. The bigger story might actually be on the winter side of the system. A narrow but intense band of snow is expected to set up from Omaha through parts of Iowa and up into Minnesota and Wisconsin. Some locations, especially near Rochester, Minnesota, and La Crosse, Wisconsin, could end up seeing over 6 inches of snow. Green Bay and Marquette, Michigan, are also in the zone for accumulating snowfall. This is going to be a heavy wet snow, so it could cause some travel issues as we move into the later part of the week. Now, looking beyond this system, the weather pattern remains active. The jet stream is going to take on a wavy pattern as we head toward the weekend, which means cooler air is going to dip down into the north-central U.S., at least temporarily. But the bigger concern is yet another strong storm system setting up over the southern plains, which could bring a more significant threat for severe weather. While this isn't looking like a high-risk event at the moment, it does have the potential to be what we call a high-ceiling event, meaning that if the right conditions come together, the storm threat could be more intense than it initially appears. Looking ahead to Sunday, March 23rd, the setup for severe storms becomes more apparent. We'll have a strong surge of moisture with dew points climbing into the mid to upper 60s all the way from the Gulf of Mexico up into southern Oklahoma and North Texas. Meanwhile, further west in areas like West Texas, dew points will be down in the 20s. This creates a sharp contrast between dry, stable air to the west and warm, moisture-rich air to the east, which is a classic recipe for severe storms. With instability levels expected to rise, particularly along east of the I-35 corridor, we could see a line of intense thunderstorms develop. Southern Arkansas, Louisiana, and even parts of Mississippi will likely be in the zone for the most active weather. Cape values, a measure of storm energy, are projected to be between 2,000 and 3,000 joules per kilogram, which is more than enough to sustain strong to severe thunderstorms. By Sunday morning, we could see some scattered storms developing across Texas, possibly producing some hail. But the bigger concern will be later in the day when a more organized line of storms, what we call a mesoscale convective system, could form and start pushing eastward. Cities like Tyler, Houston, and Waco in Texas, as well as Shreveport, Monroe, and Lake Charles further east, could be in the path of these storms. By Sunday evening, that line of storms will likely continue eastward into parts of Mississippi and Louisiana, impacting areas like Baton Rouge and Jackson. And as we move into early Monday, March 24th, The storm threat could extend even further east, possibly reaching areas like New Orleans. Now, taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture, total rainfall amounts over the next 7 days show a decent soaking for the eastern U.S. The Northeast, in particular, could see several inches of rain, with cities like Boston and New York possibly getting some heavier totals. Meanwhile, out west, the ongoing drought continues to be a major issue, especially in places like Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Unfortunately, those areas aren't likely to see much relief this week. Up in the upper Midwest, areas that will be getting snow, like Wisconsin and Iowa, will be holding on to that moisture in frozen form, which will help with long-term water availability but won't do much for short-term drought concerns. And speaking of snow, one last look at the snowfall projection shows that the higher elevations out west will continue to pick up accumulation as they usually do this time of year. But the main area of concern will be that narrow yet potent snow band from Omaha to Marquette, Michigan, where several inches of snow could pile up by midweek. So that's what we're looking at for the upcoming days. A mix of rain, snow, and the potential for some strong storms as we move into the weekend. If you found this forecast helpful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can stay updated with the latest weather information. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and feel free to share it with anyone who might need to know what's coming. Thanks for watching. See you next one.